Is this slide is visible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. As I was discussing in last class and in yesterday, that gross energy, that is the total amount of energy which is present in a food materials or feed materials, it is nothing but the gross energy. How to get that gross energy? That is when a food is completely oxidized in presence of oxygen, the amount of heat produced is nothing but the heat of combustion or gross energy. Yesterday we have discussed that gross energy content of different nutrients are different. In case of carbohydrate, it is 4.2 kilocalorie per gram. In case of fat, it was 9.4 kilocalorie per gram. In case of protein, it is 5.65 kilocalorie per gram. So gross energy does not have any relation with the other form of energy, that is the digestible energy, metabolizable energy, and net energy. So here will be someone is also right now joining. Who else? Okay. So I told you that the equipment which is used for measuring the gross energy content of any food or feedstuff is bomb calorimeter. You should remember this bomb calorimeter equipment name, and this particular bomb calorimeter is used to measure the gross energy content of the feed samples. Now, before I discuss how it works, you first see the picture of this bomb calorimeter. Here, you know, this is the automatic type of bomb calorimeter, and this is the previous versions of the bomb calorimeter. So if you see the structure of this bomb calorimeter, bomb is nothing but a metallic container. This is the container which is known as bomb, and inside this bomb there is a particular area where you can put the feedstuffs, and here there is a cup. In that cup only you have to take the samples. Suppose if you are taking maize, you have to take ground maize 1 gram. If you want to take any cereal, roughest sources, you can take that 1 gram in it. Then it is this bomb, the lid needs to be closed, and there is a particular place through which you can uh, pass the oxygen from the oxygen cylinder. As I have told, the feed needs to be oxidized in the presence of oxygen. So you have to pass the oxygen. So inside this bomb, what is there? There is foodstuffs, and you have already allowed the in. Then with the help of a firing leads, what you have to do, you have to ignite that particular feed samples. In that case, what will happen? Whatever energy or heat is produced, that heat is going to be disseminated from that bomb to the surrounding water. This is the water content. Here it is written water, and inside that water container there is a thermometer. So what will happen? There is a increase in temperature, and which will be shown in the thermometer. Suppose the thermometer temperature is 37 degrees centigrade. If 37 to 38 degrees is there, that means 1 degree centigrade temperature increase is there due to the heat which is produced due to the combustion of these feed samples. So ultimately what will happen? You have to take care about that water equivalent of the feedstock, this equipment multiplied by the that rise in temperature which is shown in the thermometer. That will give you an idea about the gross energy content of the feed samples. So here again I am telling, this is the bomb calorimeter. So this is the bomb. Actually this is a steel or metallic container, and uh, surrounding this metallic container there is a water jacket where water is put, and one thermometer is attached into it, and you have to allow the oxygen to let in from the cylinder, and you have to maintain a specific pressure of the oxygen, that is 25 to 30 atmospheric pressure. You have to ignite that particular samples So in the presence of oxygen, this food is going to be burned and there will be production of heat. That heat is going to be disseminated to that particular water which is circulated in and around that particular bomb, and there will be rise in temperature. So this is the picture of the bomb calorimeter. So here it is written that a bomb calorimeter is a type of constant volume calorimeter used in measuring the heat of combustion or gross energy. The whole bomb that is pressurized with oxygen at 25 to 30 atmospheric pressure and containing a weight mass of the samples, typically 1 to 1.5 gram of samples you have to take. It is submerged under a known volume of water. Around 2 liters of water is put in that particular bomb calorimeter before the charge is electrically ignited. If energy is released by the combustion and heat flow from the crosses the stainless steel wall, thus raising the temperature of the steel bomb, it contains and the surrounding water jacket. The temperature change in the water is then actually measured with a thermometer. This reading, along with the bomb calorimeter factor, or what you can say water equivalent of the bomb calorimeter, is used to calculate the energy given by the particular samples or the feed samples. That is nothing but the gross energy content of the feed samples. Do you have any query? Hello? Could you understand? Could you understand that bomb calorimeter working principles? Any doubt? Any student? Prem Agarwal. Could you understand how it works? How the bomb calorimeter works to measure the gross energy content? Anyone is having any doubt? You can raise your hand if anyone is having any doubt. No one is having any doubt. Everything is clear for everyone. It seems. Okay. So I'll be continuing. So this bomb calorimeter, as I have told, that is required to measure the gross energy content of the feed samples. And one thing you should remember over here also, that the standards, before you run the feed samples in the bomb calorimeter, you have to run a standard samples. So the standard samples which is used to measure the gross energy content is the benzoic acid. So benzoic acid is the standard sample. So 2-3 important point you have to remember. One is that quantity of water which is generally put in that bomb calorimeter, it is 2000 gram. Quantity of feed which is generally taken in the container, that is 1 to 1.5 gram. Then the oxygen pressure to be maintained is 25 to 30 atmospheric pressure, and the standard samples other than the feed samples is the benzoic acid. Okay. Now coming to the partitioning of the energy, as you have already seen that all the energy which are there in the feedstuffs is the gross energy, but this is not the actual energy which is being utilized by the livestock and poultry. Definitely there are some losses of energy which is there in the feed. So how there are losses of energy can be measured, and what you will get when the losses of energy is considered from the gross energy. So first of all, first you see this is the gross energy, that is the heat of combustion. Then suppose you are taking a food rich in energy, suppose you are taking 100 kilocalorie energy through the food. You should not expect that all this 100 kilocalorie is going to be digested, because there are some materials which is not digested, which is excreted through the feces. So if you are taking 100 kilocalorie energy through the feed, and if 20 kilocalorie is excreted out through the feces, in that case the digestible energy content will be 100 minus 20, that is the 80 kilocalorie will be the digestible energy. That means the abbreviated form of digestible energy is DE. So abbreviated form of gross energy is GE, that is the gross energy, that is the total energy content. And if you deduct the fecal energy from the gross energy, you will get digestible energy. That means 100 kilocalorie you have consumed, 20 kilocalorie is excreted to the feces. So the digestible energy is 80 kilocalorie. That means that all the quantity of energy which is present in the food or feed is not going to be digested. Some quantity of energy is going to be lost to the fecal material. Okay, so the first partitioning is the digestible energy. Then second partitioning, once the nutrient in absorb in the intestinal wall, through the intestinal wall, this is going to be metabolized, is it not? Once the metabolism is over, definitely there is some loss of energy through the urine. And in case of ruminant species, where there is much more gaseous products are also available along with the volatile fatty acids, methane is also going to be lost. So if you deduct the energy losses to the urine and the methane, you will get metabolizable energy. So this is the second part of that partitioning. So first is digestible energy, which is digested. If you deduct that urinary energy loss and the methane energy loss from the digestible energy, you will be getting this metabolizable energy. Then third important aspect is the net energy. So how to get that net energy value? So net energy value will be calculated if you deduct the heat increment from the metabolizable energy, you will get the value of net energy. That means this schematic diagram you have to remember total gross energy minus fecal energy losses is the digestible energy. Digestible energy losses minus urinary energy losses and methane energy losses combinedly together. If you deduct it from the digestible energy, you will get that metabolizable energy. Then in order to get the net energy, you have to deduct heat increment from the metabolizable energy. You will be getting the net energy. Now the question is that what is this net energy? What is this metabolizable energy? What is this digestible energy? I told you the digestible energy, which is generated from the metabolism, and the metabolizable energy, which is generated from the digestible energy. So digestible energy DE or ME, that is the metabolizable energy and the net energy. Now question will come, what is this heat increment? Heat increment means increase in heat. So how to measure that increment? What are the different cause or factors which can increase the heat? There are two different causes. One causes is that heat of nutrient metabolism. Another one is the heat of fermentation, HNM, heat of nutrient metabolism, and heat for fermentation, heat of fermentation. That is the two reason for which the heat is increased.
Sir,
Hello,
sir, slides are not visible.
slides not visible.
No, sir.
1 minute. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So why not you have to inform me just 5 minutes before? Huh? Oh, sorry, sorry. I could not see these things because I have hided that one. That's why just I am concentrating on this slide only. So now is it visible? You could see the bomb calorimeter or not? This one is visible or not?
Yes,
Hello?
sir.
When I was
Yes, sir.
explaining this bomb calorimeter, you could see the slide or not?
Yes, sir.
This one you have seen, no?
Yes, sir.
But this one you have not seen.
Sir.
Now it is visible.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
What I was talking, the gross energy, if you deduct the fecal energy from the gross energy, you will be getting the digestible energy, that is DE value. And from the DE value, if you deduct the urinary energy and methane energy, you will be getting the metabolizable energy. And if you deduct the heat increment from the metabolizable energy, you will be getting the net energy. Actually, this energy requirement is expressed in terms of either DE or ME or NE. Okay, suppose you are taking 100 kilocalorie food, but you should think that whether the 100 kilocalorie or not. No, it is not going to be utilized as such. 20, let it be 20 kilocalorie energy is lost through the feces. So you'll be getting digestible energy 80 kilocalorie. Then 10 kilocalorie may be lost through the urine. Definitely we are not producing methane. So let it be 80 minus 10. So 70 kilocalorie will be the metabolizable energy, and rest 5 kilocalorie it is in the form of heat increments. So 80 minus 5, that is 75, will be the 75 kilocalorie is going to be the net energy. I was talking about the heat increment, that is the increase in heat production. In winter season, whenever you are taking some fatty substances or some fat in your food, you will feel warm. Why you are feeling warm after taking that particular fatty substances? The reason behind is that when the nutrient get metabolized, there will be production of energy, and that energy, if it is lost as heat, you will feel warm. So that particular phenomenon is known as specific dynamic effect or specific dynamic action. Probably you have read it in 10 plus 2 also. So specific dynamic effect or specific dynamic action is nothing but the increase in heat productions due to the metabolism of nutrients. Once the nutrients get metabolized, all the energy is not going to be captured. Some quantity of energy is going to be lost as heat. As the heat is lost, then you will feel warm. So you have to deduct that heat increment from the metabolizable energy, you will be getting the net energy. Then this net energy is the actual form of energy which is being utilized by the livestock, poultry, even for the human being. And this amount of energy, basically it is retained in the body for different purposes. There are basically two processes. One is for maintenance, another is for the production. Maintenance, I told you yesterday also, maintenance means we are not going to lose any body weight, we are not going to gain any body weight, just to maintain the vital body functions or to sustain the life. The energy which is required, that is known as maintenance net energy. But in case of livestock species or poultry, they are being reared for the production purpose only. So you have to provide extra energy over and above this maintenance energy, that is for the milk production, that is for the egg production, that is for the growth, that is for the wool production. So if you are asked to write the schematic representation of partitioning of the food energy in animals, so you have to schematically present this particular chart.
Hello? Zona.
Can you see the slide? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there are some problem in the internet connectivity. I'm facing some problem. Now it's visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I was talking about the digestible energy. Whenever there is some problem, you should inform me through WhatsApp also that whether you are watching or checking that particular sites or not. Okay, so this is the portion of the gross energy of a feed which does not appear in the feces. That means the total gross energy minus the fecal energy losses, that is the digestible energy. Food nutrient present in the feces can burn in bone calorimeter produced through heat, produced enough of heat. That means, first of all, what you have to do, you have to measure the gross energy content of the food, then you have to measure the gross energy content of the feces. So if you deduct the gross energy content in the food minus fecal energy, which is also measured in the bone calorimeter, you will get the quantity which is actually digestible, and you will get the value of digestible energy. Next is metabolizable energy. What is metabolizable energy? I told you already, I have already shown to you, that is the digestible energy minus energy losses through the urine and gaseous products. Basically, it's the methane. And in case of ruminant species, due to the carbohydrate fermentation, along with the volatile fatty acids, there are production of the gaseous materials like the carbon dioxide and methane. And methane has got some gross energy value. I already told you yesterday the formula for methane is CH4, and it does not have the oxygen within that molecule. That's why the oxygen is required to oxidize that particular CH4 or the carbon and hydrogen, and that's the reason the gross energy value of methane is very, very high. It is 13.34 kilocalorie. So if you deduct the urinary energy losses and gaseous energy losses from the digestible energy, you will get the value of metabolizable energy. One should remember, suppose if we are asked how to calculate the metabolizable energy value from the gross energy value, in that case what you have to do, so gross energy minus fecal energy, minus urinary energy, minus methane energy or gaseous energy. If you altogether, if you deduct it from the gross energy, you will be getting the metabolizable energy. But if you have to calculate out the metabolizable energy from the digestible energy, what you have to do? So digestible energy minus urinary energy and methane energy, you will get the idea of metabolizable energy. So this metabolizable energy, it is comparable to TDN, but in the TDN, fermentable gases are not generally considered. So what is this TDN? I will be coming in later section. So normally about 8% of the gross energy intake is lost to the methane production. 8 to 10% of the gross energy is generally lost when there is a methane production. And this methane production, it's an inevitable process. That means you cannot stop this methane production when there is a anaerobic fermentation of carbohydrate in rumen. And the developed country, they used to blame us, India, that you have large number of non-productive animals, and these animals are producing huge quantity of methane, which is responsible for global warming. This methane is considered as one of the important greenhouse gases. Other than that, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide. So methane is also a greenhouse gases, and its global warming potential is 21 times higher than the carbon dioxide. And that's why definitely we have to take all the precautionary measures to reduce the methane production. How to reduce the methane production? What should be the mitigation strategy for the methane production? So definitely there are several means and ways by which you can reduce the methane production, but one thing you should remember, that methane production cannot be stopped wholly or fully, but you can reduce it, because there are some nutritional means like that. There are some chemicals are available, some food ingredients are available which can reduce the methane production. If you can reduce the methane production, two ways you are going to get benefit. One thing is that you can save a very huge quantity of energy which is written in the food, otherwise it is going to be lost. That is one part. Second part, you can save the environment, because of this greenhouse gas only there are global warming. Okay, then question generally comes that how to calculate out the metabolizable energy from DE. You may get some equations also, you may get some questions also, that if you have to calculate out metabolizable energy from DE, I told you that if you deduct the urinary energy loss and fecal energy loss from the digestible energy, you will be getting the metabolizable energy. But there is a equations where you can remember that if you multiply 0.82, that means 82%. If you multiply with digestible energy, you will be getting the metabolizable energy value. That means, suppose someone has offered 100 kilocalorie digestible energy. 100 kilocalorie multiplied by 0.82, that means 82 kilocalorie would be the metabolizable energy. Why it is considered 0.82 or 82? Because 18% or 0.18 is already lost through urine and methane. So sometimes you may get the questions, what is the factor which is generally multiply with the digestible energy in order to get the metabolizable energy value? So it is the 0.82. So DE multiplied by 0.82 is the metabolizable energy value. Are you getting me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So next is, what are the different factors which can affect the metabolizable energy value of the food? There are different species. Their food habit is different. Their digestive tract is different. Their utilization pattern of the nutrients are different. So depending on that one, the metabolizable energy value of the foods also differ. So first factor what we can remember, that is the species of the animal in which you are offering, for which you are offering the feed. So definitely if you are considering ruminants and non-ruminants, non-ruminants can use this metabolizable energy value of the food is generally higher, because in case of non-ruminants, methane losses or gaseous losses are comparatively less or it is nil. That's why non-ruminant species will be having more ME value for a specific food as compared to the ruminant species. Another thing is that composition of the food, that is another factor which can also affect the metabolism energy value. If the crude protein content is present in unbalanced way, in that case also it is generally increase the losses. So in that case, what will be there? Greater proportion of the amino acids will be deaminated and greater proportion of the nitrogen will be excreted urea. That means if you are offering the food and where there will be protein, and if that protein is unbalanced one, in that case, urinary losses will be more. In that case, MU value will be less. Then if you are processing the food, in that case what will happen? ME values is going to be changed. If you are processing the food, in that case what will happen? The losses of the nutrients to the feces, losses of the energy through the methane and methane production, it is going to be reduced. In that case, ME value is going to be increased. That is the third factor. Fourth factor is the level of feeding, how much you are offering. If you are offering high quantity of feed which may not be able to digested by the animals, in that case you can assume the ME value is going to be less. Okay, then so these are the four factors, most important factors you have to keep it in mind, which can affect the ME values of the food. Species of the animal, composition of the food, then processing of the food, and level of feeding. Now coming to the very important aspect of the energy, that is the net energy. I told you this is the useful form of energy, and how to define this net energy. This is that portion of the metabolizable energy which may be used as needed by the animals for work, for growth, fattening, fetal development, milk production, or for the heat production. If the animal is placed in a environment where there is huge cold temperature is there or cold climate is there, in that case also some quantity of heat is required, that is also going to be utilized from the metabolism energy in the form of heat increment. So this is the portion of the metabolism energy which is actually used by the livestock. That's why it is termed as net energy. What is the difference between the metabolizable energy and net energy? It differs from the metabolizable energy in that net energy does not include the heat of fermentation, nutrient metabolism, or the heat increment. That means when we are considering the net energy, it is already metabolizable energy minus heat increment. Two important point I have told you. What is the cause of heat of increment is that one is heat of fermentation, second one is the heat of nutrient metabolism. Then that means metabolizable energy minus heat increment is nothing but the net energy, and one should remember this net energy is the actual useful energy for different productive purpose. And this net energy system, as I was talking, that why the heat is producing, this food is producing heat. When one scientist, Armsby, he is the scientist who has developed this net energy system, he conducted an experiment to measure the heat increment or energy expenditure during the assimilation of the feed in the following manner. First, he measured the heat resulting from the ingestion of the feed at a given level of food intake. Then he increased the food intake. What he could find, when there is an increase in the food intake, there is increase in the heat production also. So this thing you should not remember only. Just I was talking that things that Armsby is the scientist. He is the scientist Armsby who has developed this net energy. And two important causes you should remember. That is why the heat increment is there. One is the heat of nutrient metabolism, and second one is the heat of fermentation. Then, as I was talking, that we have to provide the energy. How to evaluate the energy value of the feed? So there are several ways by which we can express the energy value of the feed, or we can express the requirement of the animals. As we were talking, generally gross energy is not considered to express the energy value of the feed. Rather, it is the digestible energy. You can tell these things that 100 kilocalorie digestible energy is required per kg of body weight, or you can take 80 kilocalorie energy is required for metabolism energy required for per kg of body weight. You can tell 60 kilocalorie net energy is required for 1 kg of body weight. So that's why what are the different evolution value to express the energy value of a feed. First one is the total digestible nutrient. Second one is the starch equivalent. Third one is the gross energy, but gross energy is not related with the useful purpose. Then fourth one is the digestible energy. Fifth one is the metabolism energy. Sixth one is the net energy. Seventh one is the Scandinavian food unit system. Then another one is the Fripp's production value. So these are the different way. Gross energy is not the way to express the energy value, just to have an idea about the total energy content, but it is not going to give any idea about the utilization of the energy. I told you several times. So you should express the energy value for the utilization purpose for the livestock and poultry. One is the total digestible nutrient, starch equivalent, DE, ME, NE, Scandinavian food unit system, and FAPS production value. Now let us see. First one is the total digestible nutrient. You should remember this particular terminology for your whole life, that what is this total digestible nutrient and how to calculate this total digestible nutrient. If you are passing out this BBSNH also, sometimes it will be posted in dispensary. There also farmers may come that they may ask you that please give us a formula for their animals. It may be for cattle, buffalo, sheep, goat, pig, poultry. There you have to know that what is TDN and how to express the energy value of that particular feed. So this terminology, total digestible nutrient, what is this and what does it indicate? TDN is simply a figure which indicates the relative energy value of a feed to an animals. When yesterday I was talking about the roughage and concentrate, I told you that if the energy content or total digestible nutrient content of any feed is less than 60%, that particular foodstuff is considered as roughage. And if it is more than 60% and less than 18% crude fiber, that particular food is considered as concentrate. That means the concentrate does contain more quantity of TDN or total digestible nutrient, and roughage does contain less quantity of TDN. It is less than 60%. That is the roughage. So how to calculate out the TDN content of any foodstuff? So how to conduct the digestibility experiment and all these things, that is there in other unit. So here simply you should remember the formula that for the calculation of TDN percentage. Percentage of TDN equal to percentage of digestible crude protein. DCP stands for digestible crude protein, then plus percentage of digestible crude fiber CF plus percentage of digestible NAF nitrogen free extract plus percentage of digestible ether extract into 2.25. So this formula you have to keep it in mind in order to calculate out the TDN percentage of any feed. You know, this is also there in your practical. You have to calculate out the TDN percentage of the feed by getting the value of DCP percentage, DCF percentage, DNAP percentage, and DEE percentage. So do you have any idea about that nitrogen free extract? What is this nitrogen free extract? Any idea? Anyone can tell me what is NFE? Any idea? NFE, Sarup Vikas Karmakar.
Yes, sir.
Do you know what is NFE? Any idea?
Yes, sir.
What is this NAP? Whether this
It
NAP
is
is a carbohydrate, fat, or lipid, protein.
NF nitrogen fraction.
You cannot
It contains the
remember it.
sugars and starch.
Sugars and starch. That means it's coming under the carbohydrate category, is it not?
Yes, sir.
That means there are two form of carbohydrate. One is crude fiber CF. Another one is the NAF. That is the nitrogen free extract. Everyone should remember these things. NAF stands for nitrogen free extract. So nitrogen free extract is nothing but the soluble carbohydrate. This NCF is insoluble carbohydrate, but NAF is the soluble carbohydrate which is generally digested by the non-ruminant species, including human being. So if we are taking much more quantity of fiber-rich foodstuff, we won't be utilize it because we do not have the sufficient quantity of enzymes to digest that one. But when we are taking this chapati, when we are taking rice, it is full of starch. That starch is coming under the NAF category. So NAF and crude fiber both are the components of this crude fiber only. So here what you have to do, so percentage of TDN equal to percentage of digestible crude protein, percentage of digestible crude protein plus percentage of digestible crude fiber plus percentage of digestible NAP, that is a nitrogen free extract, then percentage of digestible ether extract into 2.25. So why it is multiplied by 2.25? Yesterday I was talking the energy content in the fat is 2.25 times higher than the carbohydrate and protein. That means if it is 9 kilocalorie for fat and 4 kilocalorie is for carbohydrate, it is 9 divided by 4, it is coming 2.25. Very often I have seen the students used to get confused between 2.5 and 2.25. One should not forget the factor is 9 divided by 4, it is coming 2.25, not 2.5. So we may get the questions that in order to get the TDN percentage of digestible ether extract is multiplied by which factor, whether it is 2.25, 2.5, 3 or 5. So in that case you have to write it is 2.25. Then here one thing you have to remember, that one can easily get an idea about the total digestible nutrient content in the feed if you get the value of digestible crude protein percentage, digestible crude fiber percentage, digestible NAP percentage, and digestible ether extract percentage. In spite of having this much advantages, it has got some disadvantage. Also this particular system has got disadvantage also. What is that? It overestimates the value of roughages because more energy spent in chewing such feeds remain unaccounted. You know, whenever you are offering roughage based diet or the food which is very much rich in crude fiber, in that case what will happen, maximum quantity of energy is lost during the fermentation and chewing process. So that is not generally considered in case of TDN calculation. If very high quantity of losses is there, that is actually considered, but when there is a gaseous losses, when there is a losses in case of chewing, in that case also it is not considered. That's why that is the disadvantage. Another thing is that if the feeds are high in fat content, sometimes the TDN value is very high, it is more than 100%. You know, fat content, digestible fat content, it is generally multiplied by 2.25. So that's why the feed which is very rich in fat, you may not get the correct TDN percentage. So that is the disadvantage of total digestible nutrient. Now, what are the different factors which can affect the TDN value of the feed? First one is the how much percentage of dry matter content is there. That is the first factor. Second factor is that how much portion of the dry matter is digestible. That is the digestibility of the dry matter. Again, it has got some effect on the TDN value. Unless the dry matter of the feed is digestible, you won't get the TDN value. Only the digestible diameter can contribute the total digestible nutrient. So that is the second factor which can affect the TDN value. Third factor is the amount of mineral matter in the digestible diameter. Generally, you know, mineral and vitamin, they are not going to provide any energy, and that's why it is not generally considered for the TDN calculation. So if the mineral content is very high, in that case, there will be low TDN value. Then the amount of fat in the digestible diameter, if the digestible fat content is very high, in that case also it will increase the TDN value. But if it is a balanced feed where there is a balancing of carbohydrate, protein and fat, you will get a better TDN value in order to provide the energy requirement of the feedstuffs. Okay, so this is about the TDN. So this, what is TDN, how to calculate out the TDN, and what are the different factors which can affect the TDN value, what are the merits and demerits of the TDN value, that is also just right now I have discussed. So I will stop here. If you have any query up to this part, you can talk to me, you can ask me. If it is not, then I will stop here. So again, from in the next week, I'll be continuing with this one. Any question? Rosni Linji,
Yes,
are you there?
sir.
Could you
Yes,
get
sir.
something?
Yes, sir.
Then Lalta Jwali. Lalta Jwali is present. Is not there. Lalta Jwali.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
excuse me,
Could you
sir.
get? Yes.
Sir,
Benjia.
can you please repeat
Which
about the
one?
how mineral
About
content
that?
and fat content? Mineral content and
How
fat
mineral
content.
content, fat content affect the TDN value?
Yes, sir.
You see here. First, you see. Can you see the slide?
Yes, sir.
Is visible? Here you see
Yes,
when we are
sir.
calculating the TDN percentage, whether we have taken into consideration the mineral matter over here, it is not there. You see, this is the crude protein, this is the crude fiber, it is the carbohydrate. NAP is also the carbohydrate, and ether extract is also the lipid part. But here we are not considering the mineral matter, is it not? So if a particular feed does contain very high content of mineral, definitely the DCP value and DCF value, DNF value and DE value is going to be less. In that case, the TDN value is going to be low, because we are not considering any mineral matter in calculation of TDN percentage. If mineral content is very high, definitely this value is going to be less. That's why the TDN percentage is going to be lower. That is one part. Second part is that fat percentage. Here, if you see the calculation, the digestible ether extract should be multiplied by 2.25. If the digestible fat content is very high, once you are getting, suppose you are getting 40% digestible ether extract or digestible fat, if it is multiplied by 2.25, it itself is coming around 90 kilocalorie. Then other than that, if you are adding this DCP percentage, DCA percentage and DNAP percentage, it is crossing 100 kilocalorie percent or 100 percentage in case of TDN percentage. That's as the factor is very high for multiplication with the digestible ether extract. That's why TDN value will be very high if the digestible fat content is more, and if the mineral content is more, definitely the TDN percentage is going to be less. You have to explain it by writing the equations. Is it okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Anything else? Anyone? Is there any query? Whenever you will be studying the book now, then again it will be very clear. Moreover, you are not here. Everything cannot be exactly make you understand by online classes. Also, some of the doubt must be there also. But when you will be coming back, definitely it will be also solved. Before your examination, definitely will be here. Within 1 month, you may expect you may come back. Any query? Today also I could find around 52 students join this class. Okay, if there is no more class, so again we'll be meeting in next week to continue with this MRC partitioning. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you all. You can leave.